My name is Gerald Whitmore. I'm 60, 2 years old. I have rough hands from 40 years of work. I have a bad knee that clicks every time I walk upstairs. I have a heart that has been broken more times than I can count, not by strangers, not by enemies, but by the people sitting at my own dinner table. And on a cold Tuesday morning in November, standing at an ATM machine outside a gas station, I almost collapsed onto the pavement. Not because of my heart, not because of my knee, because of what I saw on that screen. The balance, $0.47. I stood there staring at those numbers, and the whole world went quiet. Cars were passing behind me. Someone beeped their horn. A little kid on the sidewalk was laughing at something. But I couldn't hear any of it. All I could see was that number, 0, and all I could feel was something I hadn't felt in a very long time. The feeling that I had been completely and totally fooled. But let me back up, because for you to understand what that moment meant, for you to truly feel what I felt standing at that machine, you need to understand where I came from. You need to know about my life, my family, my wife Patricia, and her son Marcus. You need to know about the 40 years I spent being the quiet man, the patient man, the man who never raised his voice, never asked for much, and truly believed, that love was something you earned by giving everything you had. I was wrong. I grew up poor. Not the kind of poor where it's romantic and simple. The kind of poor where your mother is crying at the kitchen table because the electricity bill is due, and there are 4 children who need to eat. My father worked in a textile factory. He died at 58, still working, still tired, still unpaid what he was owed by the world. I promised myself I would not die like that. I would build something solid, something no one could take away. So I worked. From the age of 16, I worked. I started in construction, carrying wood and mixing concrete in the summer heat. By my 30s, I had saved enough to buy a used truck and start a small moving company, 2 employees. Then 5, then 12. It was never glamorous. It was never easy, but it was mine. Every dollar I earned had my sweat on it. I married my first wife, Catherine, when I was 29. She was a kind woman, a quiet woman. We had 1 daughter together, my Rosie. Rosie is 30 now, lives 2 states away with her husband and my 2 grandchildren. Catherine passed away when Rosie was only 9 years old. Breast cancer. I raised Rosie alone after that. Those were the hardest years of my life, but I did it. I packed lunches. I went to school plays. I learned how to braid hair because my little girl deserved to look beautiful. I was not a perfect father. No man is. But I was a present one. And Rosie grew up knowing that her father loved her more than his own comfort. I met Patricia when I was 51. She was 47. She had a son from a previous relationship, Marcus, who was 23 at the time. Patricia was charming, funny. She made me feel young again. After years of being alone, years of coming home to a quiet house and reheated dinners, she felt like sunlight coming through a window I forgot I had. We got married after 2 years of dating, small ceremony, just close friends and family. I was happy. I was genuinely, deeply happy. I should have paid closer attention to the warning signs. Marcus never liked me. I want to be fair. He wasn't rude in an obvious way, not at first. He was just cold, the kind of cold that wraps itself in politeness, so you can't quite call it out. He called me Gerald, never Dad, never even Sir, just Gerald, said in a flat tone that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. He moved in with us 6 months after the wedding. He said he was going through a rough time, lost his job, couldn't afford his apartment. Patricia looked at me with those eyes of hers, the ones that could soften a stone wall, and I said yes. Of course I said yes. He was her son. I knew what it meant to be a parent. I would not separate a mother from her child. What I didn't know was that a rough time would last 4 years. 4 years of Marcus sleeping in my guest room. 4 years of Marcus eating food I paid for, watching a television I bought, living under a roof I built. And in 4 years, I watched him do 3 things consistently: sleep late, play video games, and whisper to his mother about me. I could tell when they'd been talking. Patricia would get a certain look, like she was measuring me, calculating something. She would become distant, ask questions about my bank account, my business, my plans. At first I thought it was normal. Married couples talk about finances. That's healthy. But then things started changing in ways I couldn't ignore. The credit card bills started going up. I managed our joint account, and I noticed purchases I didn't recognize. A new television, not for our room, for Marcus's room, new shoes, clothes, subscriptions. When I asked Patricia about it, she would wave her hand and say, "Don't be so cheap, Gerald. He's family." Family, I heard that word used against me more times than I can count. When Marcus wrecked his car and needed a new one, he's family, Gerald. When Marcus wanted to take a vacation with his friends and needed spending money, he's family, Gerald. When Marcus decided he wanted to take an online business course that cost $1,200 and never finished it, Gerald, don't be so cold. He's trying to better himself. And I stayed quiet, because that was who I was. I was Gerald Whitmore, the quiet man, the patient man, the man who believed that peace in the home was worth more than being right. But quietly, something was building inside me, the way pressure builds behind a dam, slow and invisible until it isn't. Part 4, the disrespect grows louder. There is a moment in every man's life when he realizes that his silence has not been read as grace. It has been read as weakness. That moment, for me, came on a Sunday afternoon. I had just come home from a 12-hour shift. Yes, at 62 years old, I still worked 12-hour shifts sometimes, because the business needed me, and because I refused to let it fail. I walked through the front door, and my boots were heavy, and my back was aching. I just wanted to sit down, maybe have a glass of water, maybe watch the evening news. Marcus was in the living room with 2 of his friends. Loud music, empty snack bags on the coffee table I had bought, beer bottles on my furniture, without coasters. I said gently, "Marcus, can you keep it down a little? I just got in." He looked at me. His friends looked at me. And he said, in front of those boys, with a grin like it was nothing, "Relax, old man. It's just music, old man." His friends laughed. I stood there for 3 full seconds. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. Then I walked to my bedroom, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the wall. I didn't say anything. Patricia was in the kitchen. She heard it. I know she heard it. She didn't come to check on me. She didn't say a word to her son. She just kept moving around the kitchen, pots and pans clinking, like nothing had happened. That night I lay awake until 2 in the morning, and I started to understand something that I had been refusing to see for a long time. I was not the man of this house. I was the wallet of this house. There is a difference, and it is a painful one. I want to be very clear about something. I am not a vindictive man. I don't scheme. I don't manipulate. That is not who I am, and it is not who my mother raised me to be. But I am also not a foolish man. My daughter Rosie called me one Thursday evening. We talked every week. It was one of the things I held on to, those phone calls. Her voice always reminded me of who I really was. Not the old man in the living room, not the wallet. Her father, Gerald Whitmore, the man who braided her hair and packed her lunches. That night, she asked me something she had never asked before. Her voice was careful, like she was stepping across thin ice. "Daddy, are you okay? Like really okay?" I paused. I almost said fine, the way I always did. Instead I said, "I'm tired, baby. I'm really tired." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Daddy, I need to tell you something. Last month when I called the house and you weren't there," Marcus answered, he said, and I'm telling you exactly what he said. He said, "Don't worry about Gerald. He'll work until he drops, and then everything in that house becomes ours anyway." I felt the words land one by one, like stones dropped into still water. "He'll work until he drops, and then everything becomes ours." I thanked Rosie. I told her I loved her. I hung up the phone, and then I sat very still for a long time. I thought about my business. I thought about my house, the one I bought before I even met Patricia, the one in my name, the one I painted with my own hands. I thought about my retirement account, my savings, everything I had built across 40 years of labor. I thought about what everything becomes ours meant to a 27-year-old boy who had never held a job for more than 6 months. The next morning, I made an appointment with my bank. Not our bank, my bank. The one with the old account I had kept since before the marriage. The one I hadn't closed, hadn't merged, hadn't talked about. I had kept it out of habit, maybe somewhere deep in me, out of wisdom. I spoke with a financial advisor named Mr. Ellison, a serious man with reading glasses and patient eyes. I told him, calmly and clearly, what I wanted to do. I wanted to open a new account, entirely in my name. I wanted to redirect my business income, all deposits, all transfers, to that account going forward. I wanted the joint account to remain open, but receive only what was necessary for shared household expenses. And I wanted a new debit card, new account number, new PIN, new everything. Mr. Ellison looked at me over his glasses for a moment. Then he said quietly, "Mr. Whitmore, I think that is a very sensible decision. The day of the card and the ATM, it took about 2 weeks to set everything up properly. I was careful, I was methodical. I did not rush, because rushing is how men make mistakes, and I could not afford mistakes." The new card arrived on a Wednesday, plain, unremarkable, but when I held it in my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. That Friday was payday, the end of the month, when my business distributions came through. Normally, everything went straight into the joint account. That month, for the first time, it went into the new account. My account. I went to the ATM that evening on my way home from work, just to confirm everything had transferred correctly. The gas station on Route 9, the one I'd stopped at 100 times before. I slid in my new card, punched in my new PIN. And there it was, the balance I had worked for, sitting in my account, safe. I exhaled. I actually exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for years. I pulled out enough cash for the week and started walking back to my truck. That's when my phone rang. "Patricia," I answered. "Where are you?" Her voice was strange, tight. "Just stopped at the gas station. On my way home now. We need to talk when you get here." "Okay," I said. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. I didn't think much of it. I got in the truck and drove home. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Marcus's car was there. That wasn't unusual, but there was another car I didn't recognize, an older sedan, parked against the curb. I walked through the front door. Patricia was standing in the living room. Marcus was standing beside her, and sitting on my couch in my house, was a man I had never seen before. Heavyset, 50s. He had a yellow legal pad on his knee and a pen in his hand. I stopped. "Gerald," Patricia said. Her voice was controlled. "Rehearsed. We need to talk about the money." I looked at the man on the couch. "Who is this?" "This is Richard," she said. "He's a financial consultant. I asked him to come. A financial consultant, in my living room, without my knowledge. Without my invitation." I felt the blood in my face change temperature. "Patricia," I said, keeping my voice even, "I don't recall agreeing to a meeting tonight." "You don't need to agree," Marcus said, stepping forward, and there it was again, that grin. That same grin from the Sunday with his friends. We know what you did, Gerald. You moved the money. I looked at him slowly. What money? Don't play games. He crossed his arms. The deposit didn't come through this month. The account is basically empty. Where did the money go? I want to describe this moment carefully, because the way a man responds in a moment like this, when he's being cornered, when fingers are being pointed at him in his own home, says everything about who he is. I said nothing. I walked to the armchair across the room. I sat down. I folded my hands in my lap. Patricia stared at me. Gerald, answer us. What did you do with the money? The man with the legal pad, Richard, cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, your wife has concerns about household financial transparency. She feels that. Excuse me, I said calmly. Are you a licensed attorney? He blinked. No, I'm a. Then I'm not sure what your role is here. This is a private family conversation. I looked at Patricia. Where did you find this man? Marcus suggested him. She said, of course he did. I see. I sat back in the chair. And does this financial consultant know whose name is on this house? Silence. Does he know whose name is on the business accounts, whose name is on the vehicles, whose credit built this family's life for the past 11 years? More silence. Marcus uncrossed his arms. The grin was starting to slip. Gerald, don't make this about ownership. Patricia started. I'm not making it about anything. I said quietly. You called a meeting. You brought a stranger into my home. You're asking me to explain myself. So I'm just making sure everyone in this room understands the full picture before we continue. Now here is where I need to stop and tell you something. Something I had not yet told Patricia. Something that had arrived in the mail 3 weeks earlier and had been sitting in the inside pocket of my work jacket ever since, because I wasn't sure how to process it. Do you remember that financial advisor, Mr. Ellison, from my bank? When I came to him to open the new account, he did something good advisors do. He reviewed my full financial picture, and in doing so, he found something. Patricia had applied for a loan, using our joint account information, for $45,000. She hadn't gotten it. The bank had flagged it during the review process because my income was the primary qualifying factor and they'd needed my verification, which was never provided. But she had tried, and the loan application listed the purpose as personal investment and home improvement. There had been no home improvement, but there had been conversations, which I learned about later, between Patricia and Marcus about buying a property in Marcus's name, funded with my money, $45,000. I sat in that armchair in my living room, looking at my wife and her son and their hired consultant, and I thought about the word ours. Everything becomes ours. Marcus had said that to my daughter Rosie. Not will be taken care of. Not the family will be okay. Ours. A word that drew a circle around him and his mother, with me standing outside it, even in my own house. I reached into my jacket pocket. I placed the bank document on the coffee table between us. Patricia's eyes went to it immediately. Marcus looked at it, then looked away, but I caught it, that flicker, that split second of recognition. What is that? Patricia asked. Her voice had changed. The control was gone. That, I said, is a loan application, filed against our joint account, for $45,000. I looked at her steadily. I'd like to know what that money was for. The room was absolutely silent. Richard, the consultant, slowly clicked his pen closed and placed his legal pad face down on his knee. Patricia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Gerald, I can explain. She was going to tell you. Marcus said suddenly. His voice was aggressive, but his eyes were afraid. It was going to be an investment for all of us. You're almost 63. You're not going to run that business forever. We were trying to plan for the future. He said we, like it was decided between the two of them, like I wasn't part of the conversation. Like my money, my business, my 40 years of work were a resource to be planned around rather than an expression of a man's life. "Marcus," I said, "sit down." He blinked. "Please." I added, "Sit down." He sat. Part 9. I finally spoke all of I am not an eloquent man. I am not the kind of man who makes speeches or who has the right words lined up perfectly. But that night, sitting in that armchair in my own home, something came out of me that had been stored up for years. Not rage, not bitterness, just truth. "I want to tell you both something," I said, "and I want you to listen, because I'm not going to say it twice." Patricia sat down slowly on the couch beside Marcus. Richard the consultant was barely breathing. "I grew up with nothing," I said. "I watched my father die tired and broke. I promised myself that wouldn't happen to me. And so from the age of 16, I worked. Every single day I worked. Not for recognition, not for applause. Because work was the only language I trusted, the only thing I knew would never lie to me." I paused. When Catherine died, Rosie's mother, I could have fallen apart. A lot of men do. Instead, I got up every morning and I took care of my daughter, because that's what you do when you love someone. You get up, you show up, you give them everything you've got. Patricia's eyes were starting to fill. "I met you, Patricia, and I thought I was being given a second chance. I thought God was saying, Gerald, here is some warmth for the last chapter of your life, and I was grateful. I opened my home. I opened my finances. I opened everything." Marcus looked at the floor. I let Marcus move in. I paid for groceries, utilities, his car repairs, his courses, his trips. I never asked him to pay rent. I never gave him a deadline, because I respected his mother and because I know what it means to need help. But there is a difference between helping someone and being used, and for a long time, I told myself I was misreading it, that I was being unfair. I looked at Marcus directly. "Then my daughter told me what you said, that when I drop, everything becomes yours." He didn't look up. "I didn't get angry," I said. "I didn't yell. I didn't confront you. You know why? Because I needed to be sure first. I needed to understand the full picture before I spoke. And when I found that loan application," I gestured to the document on the table. "I understood the picture completely." Patricia was crying now. Quietly, but crying. "I'm not moving the money because I want to punish you," I said. "I moved it because I have worked my entire life for it, and I realized that in this house I was not a husband, I was not a father figure, I was not a partner, I was a source, and I am 60 years old, and I am tired, and I deserve more than that." The room was very quiet. Richard the consultant stood up slowly, picked up his legal pad, and said, "I think I should leave." No one argued with him. He let himself out. After Richard left, Patricia and Marcus sat across from me in that living room, and no one spoke for a long time. Clock on the wall ticked. A car passed outside. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. Then my phone rang. It was Rosie. I looked at the screen for a moment, then looked at Patricia. "Do you mind if I take this?" She shook her head. She looked exhausted, old suddenly, like something had gone out of her. I answered, "Hey, sweetheart. Daddy." Her voice was strange. "I have to tell you something. I've been trying to call you for the past hour. My cousin Linda, you remember Linda? She went to school with Marcus. She reached out to me today." I kept my voice neutral. "What did she say?" "She said Marcus has been... Daddy, she said he's been telling people in the family that you're keeping Mom on a tight allowance, that you're controlling and that she deserves better. He's been building a case against you, with family members, trying to get them on his side." I closed my eyes. Linda said there was a family group chat his side of the family, and Marcus has been telling them that you moved money to cut off his mom, that you're being cruel. She felt bad and reached out to me because she knows it's not right. I opened my eyes. I looked at Marcus. He was already looking at me. He'd heard enough of the conversation. I could see it in his face, the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes shifted. "Thank you, baby," I said to Rosie. "I'll call you back tonight." I hung up. "How many people did you tell?" I asked Marcus. He said nothing. "How many people in your family believe that I am the villain in this story?" Silence. Patricia put her face in her hands. "Marcus." My voice stayed level. It cost me something to keep it that way, but I kept it. "I want you to look at me." He looked up slowly. "I never spoke badly about you to anyone, not your mother's family, not my family, not Rosie. I kept every frustration inside these walls because I believed that what happens in a family stays in a family. I gave you that dignity. Did you give me the same?" He swallowed hard. "I need you to move out," I said. "Not as punishment, not out of anger, but because this is my home, and the dynamic here is not healthy for any of us. I will give you 60 days, and I will help you with the first month's rent wherever you go, because that is who I am, even now, even after all of this. That is still who I am." After Marcus went to his room that night, quietly, without argument, which surprised me, Patricia and I sat at the kitchen table. Just the two of us, a pot of cold coffee between us, the kind of scene you'd see in a movie, except in there's usually dramatic music. In real life, it's just a kitchen at night, and two people who don't know how to begin. She started. "I didn't know about the loan application being found," she said. "I thought," she stopped, started again. "I thought it was just in preliminary stages. I didn't know it had been flagged. Were you going to tell me?" I asked. A long pause. "I wanted it to be a surprise for the future, for when you slowed down with the business, Patricia." I said her name gently. "A $45,000 loan application without my knowledge is not a surprise. It's a secret. Those are different things." She looked at the table. "I know. Did you know what Marcus has been saying about me, to the family?" Her chin trembled. "I knew he was protective. I didn't know how far it had gone. He called me the old man in front of his friends," I said, "in my own living room, and you were in the kitchen. You heard it." She didn't deny it. And that honesty, small as it was, cost her something. "I should have said something," she said quietly. "I should have said something a long time ago." "Yes," I said, "you should have." We sat there for a while, not solving anything, not reconciling anything, just sitting in the truth of it, the way you have to sometimes. The way you have to let a wound breathe before you can bandage it. "I don't know if we can fix this," I said finally. "I'm not saying it's over, but I need you to understand something, Patricia. I need you to understand it deep down, in the place where all your real decisions come from." She looked at me. "I am a man," I said. "Not a machine, not a bank, not a resource, a man, with a heart that has loved you genuinely. And that man needs to be treated like a man, with respect, with honesty, with the basic dignity of being told the truth." Her tears came back. "I know, Gerald, I know. Do you?" I asked, not accusingly, sincerely. "Because I need to know if you know. Because if you do, if you truly understand what has happened in this house, then maybe there is something to save. But I cannot carry this alone anymore. I have been carrying it alone for years." She reached across the table. She put her hand on mine. I looked at her hand. Then at her face. I did not pull away, but I did not squeeze back. Not yet. Some things take time. The days that followed Marcus moved out in 43 days, not 60. He found a room in an apartment with 2 other men. I helped him move. Yes, I did. I loaded boxes into a truck. I drove them across town. Because whatever had happened between us, he was still Patricia's son, and I was still Gerald Whitmore. And Gerald Whitmore does not abandon people, even when they have abandoned him. He didn't say thank you, not that day, but 2 weeks later, my phone rang. His number. I answered. "Gerald." He paused. I need to say something." "Okay," I said. "I wasn't fair to you." He said it fast, like he needed to get it out before he lost the nerve. "I took advantage of your house, your money, I took advantage of your kindness. And what I said to Rosie about everything becoming ours, I was stupid and selfish. and I'm sorry." I let the words settle. "I appreciate that, Marcus," I said. "That took courage." I also talked to some of the family, set the record straight about what I said. He cleared his throat. "You didn't deserve that, any of it." "No," I said, "I didn't." Another pause. "I'm going to do better, get a real job, not ask Mom to bail me out." "I believe you," I said. And I meant it, because I did. Somewhere under all the entitlement and selfishness, there was a young man who had never been told what a man is supposed to be. And maybe that was partly his father's failure. Maybe it was the world's failure, but he still had time to figure it out. "Gerald," he said. "Yeah, I'm sorry I called you old man." I almost laughed. "Well," I said, "I am old. That part wasn't entirely wrong." He laughed too. Nervous, short, but real. 6 weeks after all of this, Rosie drove up with her husband, David, and my 2 grandchildren, Maya, who is 7, and James, who is 4. They came to spend the weekend. I stood on the porch when their car pulled in, and when Rosie stepped out and looked at me, really looked at me, she walked across the lawn fast and wrapped her arms around me the way she used to do when she was 9 years old. She held on tight. "You okay, Daddy?" she whispered. "Getting there, sweetheart." I said, "Getting there." Maya ran up and grabbed my leg. James held his arms up and demanded to be lifted, bad knee and all. So I lifted him. I held that boy up on my hip, and I looked out at the yard, my house, the life I built, and I felt something settle inside me. Not happiness, exactly, not yet. Something quieter, something that had to do with knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone take that from you. Patricia came to the door. She looked at Rosie carefully, the way women measure each other across old tensions. Rosie looked back. Then my daughter, my Rosie, who I raised alone, who I packed lunches for, who I braided hair for, who grew up watching her father stay quiet and keep going, held out her hand. And Patricia shook it. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't friendship. But it was a door left open. And sometimes a door left open is enough to begin. I still go to that ATM on Route 9. Every time I slide my card in and see my balance, earned by my hands, I say a small prayer. Not of anger, not of revenge, a prayer of gratitude, because that balance represents something more than money. It represents 40 years of choosing not to give up. It represents every morning I got up when I didn't want to, every nail I hammered, every mile I drove, every difficult conversation I avoided, and every one I finally had. It represents Catherine and what she taught me about love. It represents Rosie and what she taught me about legacy. It represents every quiet moment when I could have exploded and didn't, not because I was weak, but because I understood that a man who loses his dignity in the heat of the moment loses more than an argument. There is something I want to say to every person watching this, especially every man or woman who is quiet like me, who keeps the peace like me, who carries the load and never asks for credit. Your silence is not invisible. The right people see it. God sees it. And the truth always comes forward, not in the noisy, dramatic moments, but in the quiet ones. At ATM machines, at kitchen tables at night, in the voice of a daughter calling to warn you, in the conscience of a young man who finally picks up the phone. You do not have to yell to be heard. You do not have to threaten to have power. You do not have to retaliate to restore justice. You just have to know who you are. And when the moment comes, and it always comes, you just have to be ready to sit in that chair, fold your hands and speak the truth calmly, because that, more than any amount of money, is the most powerful thing a person can do. Patricia and I are still together. It is not the same as before. I don't think it will ever be the same as before, but it is more honest than before. And I have come to believe that honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is the foundation that love needs to survive on. Anything built on pretending will eventually crack. We are rebuilding slowly. The way you fix an old house, room by room, wall by wall, with patience and the understanding that some things are worth preserving. Marcus has a job now, a real one. He called last week to tell me he'd gotten his first full paycheck and paid his rent himself for the first time in his adult life. He sounded proud. He sounded like someone becoming a man. I told him I was proud of him. I meant it. Because I know what it took for me to become the man I am. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. And if there's one thing life has taught me across 62 years of living, it's this. The measure of a person is not what they take. It is what they give, and what they refuse to let be taken from them.